Good afternoon. My name is Nick Raducanu. I am the marketing director for the science program at Amplify, but we're here to talk about more than just science as part of the virtual STEM forum. I know those of you that have been joining us this week have been very gracious and attentive attendees, and we're just going to finish off the Teacher Appreciation Week virtual STEM forum that we've been putting on with a bit more of a teacher-focused seminar. So for today, we're going to bring on two folks in a moment. I'm just going to go through a couple housekeeping items first, and then I'll let you hear the folks you actually came to hear from. But as a lot of you that have been joining us this week have seen, we've had a lot of experts from the STEM field on to talk a lot about content and how you can use that content as part of your now remote learning experience. For today, we're going to shift it to a little bit more of an informal panel type discussion. And we're going to bring in two teachers, two educators, one from Chicago and one from San Diego, to talk a little bit about their remote learning experience. And going back to earlier this week, we've had STEM experts on. Obviously, in this new world, nobody's really an expert. A lot of us have become experts in our different jobs. Those of you that are educators obviously have become experts in your remote learning job. Myself, I've kind of, I guess, become an expert in remote working. But it's only been 2 months and I wouldn't consider any of us experts. So again, we want to make this more of a participatory webinar. I see a lot of you in the chat, so keep chatting with each other. I'm going to be monitoring the chat, and one of my colleagues is in there as well. So if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat. But again, want to make it a little bit more of an informal discussion. We want to hear from you guys as well, want to hear your experiences. So put those in the chat as we're going through. If you have any questions, you can put those in the Q&A section. So there's two pieces you can interact with: the chat, and you can see that's a nice running list. And then the Q&A part, if you have any questions, you can put your questions in there. So again, just one more housekeeping item, and then I promise we'll get started. You will be receiving an email tomorrow from Zoom. It won't be coming from Amplify, it will be coming from Zoom. So just make sure that you're allowed to get emails from Zoom. If you don't get it, just make sure to check your spam. If you still don't get it, my email is in your registration, so please feel free to email me. In that email, you're going to be getting a recording of this webinar. You'll also be getting a link where you can request a certificate of attendance for this webinar. So if you want to show that to your district or to your administrator, you can request that. It'll be personalized with your name on it. So again, email tomorrow from Zoom with the recording and with the certificate of participation. As you logged in, you might have seen that there's a poll up. This was just something we wanted to see where you guys, what grade levels you're teaching, what your role is. We're not going back and taking attendance with this, just a nice informal poll that we have up. So with that, let me get started with the presentation here. Quick agenda. So we're going to go through introductions. Then we're going to go through a little bit of the beginning of remote learning. So going back to what feels like 2 years ago, but was only 2 months ago, back to mid-March, and talk a little bit about our experiences in the beginning of remote learning. Then we're going to move on to some of the challenges that all of us are really classroom educators have been experienced with remote learning. Go on to how we might have solved those challenges and some success stories. Then we're going to move into some lessons learned, try to predict what's coming next, or talk about how we're going to prepare about what's coming next, and then we'll open it up for Q&A at the end and hopefully answer some questions that you guys might have. So with that, let's do some introductions. So myself, my name's Nick Raducanu. I'm the Director of Marketing for Science at Amplify. I live in New Jersey, work out of the Brooklyn office when we are in the office, and you can see my nice new office here around me. I've been with Amplify for almost 3 years now, been in the education fields for about 13 or 14, and really enjoy working with educators such as yourselves. It's one of the best parts of my job. I've also become a bit of educator myself. I have two young boys at home, so I've always appreciated educators. I appreciate you guys even more now that I've had to become a bit of an educator myself. My guys aren't in primary school yet, but they've had teachers, or their preschool teachers, sending daily assignments and doing Zoom meetings. And it's just been heartwarming and just incredible to see all the work that their teachers have been doing. And I know a lot of you have been doing the same. So I know it's Teacher Appreciation Week. We've always appreciated you guys, but it's gone another level with this whole remote learning experience. Next, I'm going to introduce Keniesha Charleston. And Keniesha, let me see if I can unmute you because I think you're on mute here. Cool. Okay. All right, so I know Keniesha's out there. Let me see if I can. Keniesha, I don't see your video. Oh, there you go. Okay, cool. There's Keniesha. Sorry, technical difficulties. There we go already. Keniesha Charleston, a grade 2 teacher at the Murray Language Academy in Chicago, Illinois, as part of CPS. Keniesha was gracious enough to have me and some of my colleagues out in her classroom. I think it was almost a year ago now. Yeah. Keniesha is one of the more creative and passionate teachers I've worked with. And once we started putting on this STEM forum, I wanted to pull her in and get her thoughts and her experiences. So Keniesha, thank you for joining today. Do you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself before we introduce our next special guest?
Sure. So as you heard, I teach 2nd grade at Murray Language Academy. This is year 19 for me. So I really enjoy teaching, although this is probably the oddest year for me because we started with the teacher strike and now we have remote learning. So I definitely, this year has really put teaching to a test for me, but I am, I love what I do. I love to watch the kids grow from September to June. So, and science is a passion of mine. Even though I teach all the subjects, science truly is a passion for mine. So I really enjoy teaching science, and I especially enjoy using the Amplify program as well. So.
Very cool. And next, we're going to bring on Miss Kelly Young, grade 5 teacher from the, I'm going to butcher this, the Lindbergh Schweitzer Elementary in San Diego, California. Kelly also was gracious enough to host some Amplify folks, which was, I think, 2 years ago now. Time has flown. Kelly is a grade 5 teacher, like I said, and has done a lot of work with our Amplify Science program specifically. That's how we got to know her. But Kelly, I'll let you give yourself an introduction here.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Kelly Young. Like Nick said, I teach in San Diego, California within San Diego Unified. I've been with the district for about 11 years, so my entire career. I'm fortunate enough to actually teach at the elementary school up the street from where I grew up. I have a master's degree from University of San Diego, specifically in education with a focus in STEAM, which has come in crazy handy for this distance learning thing. I also have, I also won Teacher of the Year for San Diego Unified for 2020, which is really exciting for me and just an honor to bring back to my school. Like Keniesha, I love science, I love technology. I had the amazing opportunity to test a couple of different science curriculums and fell immediately in love with Amplify, and just am floored every single time they have something new to push out. So it's just made teaching science even more fun for my kids between the simulators, the hands-on models, and everything else. So thank you so much for having me on. This is going to be a lot of fun.
No, it's our pleasure. I appreciate you guys taking your time. I know it's later in the day on Friday, and we're the only thing keeping you guys from your weekend. Although, what are days anymore at this point, right? Cool. So, all right. So let's move on to in the beginning. So I know everybody had a little bit different timetables for us here in the tri-state area. It was right around maybe March 11th or 12th. We all kind of got pulled out of the office and pulled into home. And I know a couple other states were a little bit later, but let's go back to really the beginning. So Keniesha, let's start with you. So I'm going to put you on the spot. I didn't give you this prompt ahead of time.
That's okay.
Your remote learning experience in one word, or I'll be generous, maybe 2 words.
Patience. Patience. Yes.
Well, yeah, that's a good one. And those of you out there, if you guys want to give us your remote learning experience in the chat in 1 word too, I'd love to see it. Kelly, I'll put you on the spot. 1 word, remote learning experience.
Understanding. There's been just a tremendous amount of grace and understanding from every single corner, whether it's educational providers, the district itself, parents, kids, I've been blown away by the amount of understanding just coming from every angle for education.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a big dark cloud over all of this, obviously, with everything that's going on in the world. I try to be a silver linings type guy. I think the one silver lining I've taken is this made us all slow down a little bit, and it's made us all, like you said, Keniesha, be a little bit more patient. And kind of reminds me of when I was a kid, pre-internet, where we all went for walks and we all hung out as families and had a little bit more understanding, like Kelly said, of each other. So tough situation, but I think you both had great words there. See if I can pull up the chat. I have too many boxes going around here. So we've got overwhelming, tenacious, creative. These are great words. Unbelievable, inequities in technology. That's actually a very good one, and one I think that everybody's still trying to solve. Uncharted, great one. Interesting. Wow. Lonely. Yep, definitely. I think there's a lot of that out there, depending on your situation. Revealing, makes you understand things a little bit differently. Totally. Highlighting, SEL. Yep, absolutely. Participation, patience, slow down. Yep. Inadequate, for sure. I think like I said, that's the one everybody's trying to solve a little bit more now. Exhausting, scary. Yep. All those things. Flexible is a good one.
Yes.
Educational, teamwork. That's a good one, especially remotely. Humbling. These are fantastic. So you keep sharing those. I know there's something like 1,000 people on, so we'll get a lot of those. But keep sharing those. Those are really cool to see, and both positive and negative, and that's kind of the world we're living in right now. All right, so let's move on to what has your progression into remote learning look like since mid-March? So like I said, for me, it was going into the office on a Tuesday, and then on a Wednesday, it was, well, you're home, and that's been 2 months now. So Kelly, let's start with you on this one. What was your progression like? And, maybe walk us through like the day you started staying home and like what your first week looked like.
Absolutely. So I've been following the story in China since like December, January. And I remember talking to my husband going, hey, maybe we should look into getting masks, things like that. And I got told I was being paranoid. And I was like, I don't know. And then as you're starting to follow the story, you're watching this thing start going across Europe and everything else. And the week that this hit, that March 13th week, I had the teacher of the year people coming through my classroom. And so my focus was there. But I still had that story, everything from Ohio shutting down on that Monday. And once that hit, I started communicating with my parents and coming up with game plans like, hey, I think there's a high likelihood that we're done at the end of this week. Let's make sure we have everything going the way we need it to. So that entire week, I made sure that all of my kids had their work sent home with them. They had all of their textbooks and all of their books that they needed just in case we didn't come back. I told all my parents, maybe we'll be back Monday. I don't know. Let's just treat this as worst case scenario. All else fails, you just bring your stuff back. It's all fine. So that Friday hits and we learned that we're not coming back. And thankfully, all of my kids had their passwords and all of that good stuff. My game plan was to immediately start distance learning March 16th. My logic was I could do a slow rollout. Let's initially find a platform that works for live streaming. We tried Twitch first because my logic was, hey, there's going to be a lot of people doing this distance learning thing. I don't know if every single platform is going to be equipped to handle the sheer volume of people. So I knew Twitch, being a video game streaming place, would be a perfect place to go because they are equipped for all sorts of population and people watching. And we quickly moved to YouTube because I discovered that their YouTube live stream has a live chat feature that allows you to time kids out if they're not being so appropriate in the live chat classroom. And it has been an absolute blast teaching on YouTube live stream. So we started there. We've been doing 5 days a week for about an hour and a half. We've done everything from literacy, we've done a full unit of literacy through YouTube. We've done math, and it's super interactive. I've been using a website called Whiteboard that allows you to have full interaction. So we've gone from just doing one thing a day to now, 8 weeks later, we have a full 6-item list that we do every single day. And the kids have a variety of ways to turn it in. So they can turn it in digitally, their parents can scan it to me, email it to me. But I think the most important piece that I've realized throughout my progression is communication.
Mm-hmm.
So with communication, I use something called Classroom Dojo. I've used it, I think, at least 8 years at this point, and I've got 100% participation on it. It's text messaging, so I don't have to worry about signing up on email, and it works like a charm. And that right there has been my saving grace this entire time.
That's fantastic. And yeah, I was following this back through January-ish myself because I was out in Seattle for a work trip, which, as we saw, was one of the epicenters, and didn't think much of it at the time. And then, I kind of poo-pooed my wife, who's more of the worrier in the family, and she reminds me every day that she was right about that one. Keniesha, what's your experience been, or what was your experience like?
Well, it was a little different here. We, the 13th, I believe that was a Friday. So Friday after we left work, we had an announcement saying that on Tuesday, we would start remote learning. So we're like, okay, we're going back to work on Monday just to get everything ready. Not enough time to even think about remote learning. We didn't really have too much of a plan. At that point, it was almost like we were only going to be out for a little bit. We really didn't know how long. So what I just decided was to use Dojo, like Kelly said, which was amazing. And instead of doing live lessons, I more so just uploaded assignments through Dojo that parents could actually work on with their children. Once we found out the Monday after Easter that we were actually going to have to start teaching live lessons, that week, we had spring break the week before. That week, I spent the whole week examining what was I going to use Google Classroom? Was I going to use Zoom? I came to the conclusion I was going to use Zoom. Well, I have to do login information. I have to get acclimated to that. My parents have to get a schedule. Then I had to decide, okay, I have 27 little ones. Am I going to have 27 little ones at one time, or am I going to break it up? So then I decided, okay, I'm going to break it up into 2 groups. So what I do now is I teach reading to one half of my class from 9 to 9:30, and then the other class gets it at 9:30 to 10. And then we have math in the same way. So I basically teach from 9 to 11 every day. And then I have 2 hours of office hours for parents because I have little ones, so they can't really communicate with me. So I'm more so communicating with their parents through Dojo and just talking about expectations, assignments that need to be completed, any questions that they have. So that's kind of how my progression came to be.
Very cool. All right, so let's move past mid-March and move into some of the challenges. So I saw a lot of folks in the chat had some really good words that described the challenges. I think there's ones we're still trying to figure out. But let's talk about some of yours. So Keniesha, let's start with you on this one. And what has been your biggest challenge or challenges maybe as you've sort of shifted to remote learning? And again, those of you in the chat, feel free to throw in yours. I'm looking at them now, and I know other folks are reading them as well.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out motivation because it is really hard right now for some of my students. They are just not as motivated as they were in the classroom. So in the classroom, you can motivate them so many different ways. And I'm competing with 7 and 8 year olds who are at home, who have cool things in their rooms that they want to show everyone. They have pets that they want to put on the screen. There's just so much. They want to lay down. They don't want to answer questions. It's like pulling teeth. So I'm still trying to figure out just ways to motivate them because they know they're not in the classroom and they're surrounded in their element. So they're just excited. And so I'm trying to get them excited about, okay, we're here. This is the classroom during this time. No, you can't go to the bathroom. You need to be working with me. So just that is probably my biggest challenge, is just to keep them motivated and engaged.
Sure. Yeah, I see some other folks in the chat saying motivation. I see one with just muting and unmuting, which I've seen with my 4-year-old. He has class calls with his preschool, and my 2-year-old yelling in the background, and the dogs are barking, and he'll get up and start walking around during the call, and I'm like, buddy, you've got a call going on. So, yeah, I can't even imagine with even bigger classes. You guys are saints with your patience on these. What about you, Kelly? What kind of challenges have you faced?
So there's definitely been a handful. I'd say the equity issue right off the bat was a big one. When I first started and we were doing live streaming and just kind of doing that slow rollout, I learned very quickly that, you know, certain kids didn't have computers at home. Others were watching the stream on phones. Some had to wait until their parents came home to just watch it on a phone. And so once we were able to kind of start distributing technology in my district out to on a one-on-one basis, that definitely helped. The other one has been the motivation and engagement piece. I was doing good until it was announced that grades wouldn't be able to be decreased. And then once that hit, all of my kids are like, see ya. And so I had to come up with a brand new way to engage and get them to not be like, no, no, come back. What helped me was I don't do Zoom and I don't do something where they can see each other. So I'm a big Harry Potter nerd. I split my kids up into 4 Harry Potter houses, and they now have to compete on a weekly basis to get that video chat or get a Roblox party or some kind of fun, engaging thing on the weekend. And that put all of my engagement back up through the roof, because each assignment, and there's like 6 or 7 every single day that they need to do, and they're little things like go on Code Combat and finish a level, record your Flipgrid video, and those are real fun because they can build things. So each one's worth a point, and the team with the most points at the end gets that party. And it's been super awesome because kids that had signed off were like, no thank you, were like, oh, you're gonna play a video game with me? All right, cool. And so that's what we do. We do like a Roblox party on Saturday and a Zoom party on Sunday. And then the
Yeah.
other thing that was kind of hard for me was to just kind of keep things slow. I'm that person that likes to make sure that pacing's on track and I know where I'm supposed to be. So I keep thinking to myself, it's May. I should be teaching XYZ and I'm not, and it feels weird. So I'd say those were probably my big ones.
Yeah, I saw something cool on Facebook, which is not sometimes not cool, saying like it's okay if you don't get through everything, and you know it was more for parents, but it was like it's okay if your kids aren't learning the 10 things you think they should be learning. It's okay if they learn 2, you know. So I think some of it's going back to your patience and understanding words you used before, just accepting or you know maybe, and I don't want to say lowering the bar, but maybe just kind of saying like it's okay if you do a little bit less or something a little bit different.
And I
And
think that's
And
where
that's what I did too. This week, I decided to have the counselor come in and we played the Mask Singer. So she was in the mask,
cool.
and they had to guess who she was. And then we just had a dance party, and it was like our brain break for the day. So, and the kids were so excited. So I said, okay, well, that's one way I can incorporate something engaging as well. And so the counselor was like, I want to come back. She did it. She wants to do a scavenger hunt with them. So just finding ways where it's like, okay, I'm not going to teach math today. We're just going to have a brain break.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love the Harry Potter idea too. Do you like dock them points, or do they only get points?
so they can only earn points.
Okay.
Get a point if they show up to the live stream, if they're turning an individual lesson. I have hidden points, so if they go above and beyond on Prodigy and get, you know, either the gold, the silver, or the bronze for that day, they get an additional point. If their Flipgrid is like on point, they get an additional point. So I do little hidden things along the way too, so that way they can go ahead and make sure that they're fully engaged. It's just done wonders because I'm also competing against video games, right? My 4th and 5th grade GATE kids are real clever, and they've discovered if I just tell my parents I've done everything, that's fine. They think I'm doing it, and it doesn't actually matter because it's not like my teacher can dock my grade. So Class Dojo, I communicate with the parents, hey, so-and-so's not doing their work, and that's also been super helpful.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, my wife would tell you that I would be in Hufflepuff if I
Roblox
was
now, and they're still online.
All right, let's see what's next here. Oops, sorry, skipped ahead. So parent communications, I've seen folks in the chat talking about getting parents involved more, or sometimes it's a challenge to not have them involved. Have you guys shifted, Kelly, let's start with you. Have you shifted the way you've communicated or involved parents or given parents resources perhaps during remote learning?
I think the only thing that has really changed for me is the amount of parents that are now communicating back to me. I've always been someone who would send out weekly messages and, hey, this is what's going on in the classroom. Here's a project. Oh, hey, by the way, one more day till that project's due. So the big shift for me was now I have almost 100% parent engagement talking back to me, which I've actually thoroughly enjoyed. It's kind of made our whole classroom community even closer.
That's fantastic. What about you, Keniesha?
Also, I would say, because I'm always in contact with parents throughout the year, but I think because of the situation, parents, they have so many questions. So Dojo, I have all my parents on Dojo. They are communicating with me. My office hours are amazing because after I teach my lessons, they come on and they're asking questions about assignments. I'm going on there and saying, hey, I noticed so-and-so wasn't getting it in math. Do you want to do you need some extra support? So definitely I'm communicating with them daily. And, even if it's outside my office hours, they're going to send me a Dojo message at 8, I'm going to answer. So just that communication is so important during this time. So I think that's really key.
Yeah, and again, going back to that silver lining comment from before, I hope once we go back to what becomes our new normal after all this is over, there's that line of communication stays. And on top of that, since it's Teacher Appreciation Week, staying on that theme, I hope people appreciate, or parents appreciate, you guys even more, because I think they've taken on a little bit of the educator in themselves to sort of supplement the in-person part that's not there. So I know, like I said, I know I've appreciated educators even more than I have before, but I hope some of those things stay, that interconnectedness even more so. And I do see in the chat, some of you have had challenges with parents, and I think the communication part that you two just highlighted is key. Over communication is probably even better now. So just a couple questions I had actually personally for you guys. I know both of you teach science as part of your K-5 curriculum. So there's things that you do in person that are obviously more challenging remotely. So things like hands-on investigations or perhaps assessments. How have you tackled, you don't have to answer both at once, but Kelly, how have you tackled things like hands-on investigations? And this is very different, how have you tackled assessments or feedback on assessments?
And walk them through everything. And then I would go ahead and send the book out to them, the simulators out with them, and all of the science logs. So that way they're getting every single piece. Right. And while we did not have the ability to do the hands-on portion because they're, in my house and they're not at their houses, I got lucky because we'd already done all of those previous assignments in the room. And Amplify is awesome. They had little dioramas of here's what it's going to look like. And hey guys, remember when we did this? So that alone has been amazing, and being able to get those hands-on investigations. We celebrated Star Wars Day on May the 4th. And I was able to use Flipgrid to have the kids build things at home. So they were making forts and bridges and Darth Vader masks. And it was fun, like you said, for the parents and the siblings and the cousins and whoever they're quarantining with to be able to build something fun.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, guys, my internet cut out, which was my challenge apparently, but sorry about that. All right.
Continued.
I noticed you guys ran with the punches. You're pros at this already. I apologize, everybody. All right, so let's move on. We've got about I think about a half hour left, so we got some stuff to tackle still. Is there anything you're still trying to figure out? So I saw people in the chat talk about equity, which is still, that's one we may be struggling with for a while. Is there anything you're still trying to figure out that either folks like Amplify could help you with, or parents could help you with, or your administrators could help you with? And again, I'd love to see your answers in the chat as well.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Sorry, Keniesha, let's start with you there.
Okay. I'm still trying to figure out, there is about two of my students who I just don't know what's going on with them. I've been reaching out to parents and just trying to figure out. I did finally figure out one was a technical issue. So we're working on getting them to have a computer. So just trying to figure out those things. And then when some of my students don't, they log on for a couple of days and then they log off. So, and still, I'm contacting parents, but not really getting responses. So I'm just still trying to figure out how to keep some of them where they're on regularly. So it's just that whole, again, motivation piece that is just, it's hard.
Yep, absolutely. What about you, Kelly?
So the things we're still trying to figure out over here is still the technology piece. Teaching at Limburg Schweitzer, we are a block away from the Islamic Center of San Diego. So a lot of our kids have parents who have that language barrier. Somali, Arabic, there's a lot of languages that make it difficult for us to have that communication piece. So I'm having to reach out to families that I know live close by, that are able to reach out. So if I can't technologically reach them, I'm at least trying to go through friends. I've also noticed that I have a couple of kids that I can't reach them at all, but I know that they're on TikTok. So I've had to get real creative in reaching out to kids that way. And really that motivation piece, like I'm still trying to figure out, okay, this is working for some kids. How do I get everyone else involved? So now I've gotten to really having that one-on-one, that hard conversation with parents, like, hey, what else can I do to get your child to do work? Is there something going on at home that I need to know of? Because again, understanding for me and flexibility has been my key. If you can't print something off, that's cool. None of my work you need to print off. You can do it by hand. You can't scan something, that's okay. Take a picture of it and send it to me. I have no, like, no, you have to do it through Google. Like, that's not reasonable. There's going to be someone in your class that cannot do that.
Right.
Sure.
Those would be my biggest things that I'm still trying to figure out.
And I saw somebody ask what TikTok is. It's almost better you don't know. No, it's
Wonderful reason for why you see middle schoolers and high schoolers like randomly walking around Target, all of a sudden busting out a random dance.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting platform. All right, cool. So let's move from challenges to some success stories and maybe some ways you overcame those. So Keniesha, let's start with you. What's been your biggest success or successes in breaking through and with remote?
Well, reaching some of my students that I did not reach for like weeks, like that was a big success story for me. And I found out one of my students' grandfather died of COVID. So that was one. And the mom was like, thank you so much. You know, she really appreciated the fact that I was taking the time, not even just to say, why is he not doing work, but is everything okay? Is there something you need from me? And then through that conversation, all of that came out. So that was huge. Being able to, one of my students today, who has not been on, we have classroom meetings every Fridays because, you know, I don't have all my kids together at one time. So every Friday we have a classroom meeting. And the student that I've been like reaching out to, his parents, he was at classroom meeting today, and everybody was so happy to see him. And so I said, are you going to start joining us? And he said, yeah. So like just reaching the kids that I haven't been able to really reach, and you know, they're like my babies. So I want to know they're okay. And so I think that has to probably be one of the biggest success stories, just finally reaching all those students that I was worried about.
And what about you, Kelly?
So I'll do a couple things because I'm seeing the chat blow up about why in the world I'm sitting in like a studio. So I'll address.
It's a cool studio.
So I'm actually living in my grandparents' old house. It's my parents' rental property, and we moved in about 2 years ago. And my husband's an audio engineer by trade, and he's amazing at what he does, but what he needed was a studio. So we're actually in my papa's den, converted into a studio. And for me, it's been a success because I could not do a lot of what I do so successfully without my husband's setup. He has made it in here so that I don't have to worry about sound and I don't have to worry about the stream. Everything kind of works just cohesively. And if there's ever a problem, I'm literally living with a tech guy who can come in on the fly, put the little webcam down, fix it real fast, and I'm back up and running in like 5 minutes flat. And I am incredibly thankful for him. I think the other thing that has been really successful is kids in my classroom who never spoke. I've got a couple English language learners who speak Chinese, and culturally they're very soft-spoken, very respectful of the teacher, don't readily participate in class, but you put them online and it's an entirely different ballgame. My two twin girls have been going off in the participation department. It has been so much fun to watch. Even kids that you wouldn't think would be so verbal on the computer, you take that face-to-face away and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we now have to have a conversation about how to be polite online.
Yeah, I think I think that's definitely an interesting one. One of the things you remind me of with your setup is I read originally people pulled the like how to work from home articles, or it's how to teach from home maybe in this instance of have a dedicated space, and not everybody has the space to have a dedicated space. I'm actually in my bedroom right now, but I bought like $100 desk and put it in the corner, and my wife wanted to kill me for spending money, but I have a nice little corner that's my little office kind of, and it's been nice. I don't have a studio, but it's nice to have that little space. Yeah, I see people saying my space is a desk in my bedroom too, so solidarity. Do you have any funny, cute remote learning stories? I know I've been the CNN guy with my kid barging in during calls before. All my coworkers have gotten to know my kids very well. Kelly, let's start with you. Any heartwarming stories? Anything funny that's happened to you?
The funniest ones have been the amount of emojis that kids have been using. Emojis now have all sorts of fun things. There's ones where it's like there's a bottle or a germ, so kids are like throwing little viruses everywhere, and so I have to be real good about deleting those. For our Roblox parties on Saturday, they get a big kick out of just like killing my avatar, and on Roblox your little guy just kind of falls down, and it's hilarious, and the kids, like, you can hear them talking, they're like, oh haha, this is the best. So I think for me, being able to engage them on that level on something that they really enjoy motivates them to want to come back to my virtual classroom on Monday.
That's cool. I see people in the chat. I had a student log in as Carol Baskin from Tiger. Oh boy. Yeah. What about you, Keniesha? Anything funny or heartwarming that's happened to you?
That they have all these pets that they just want to put right in front of the camera, and I'm just like, here's my cat, and here's my pet rabbit, and right when I'm teaching, and all of a sudden you just see this face of like an animal or a little pet. So we have to talk about, we let them share, but just, they're just so excited, or look at my dinosaur. So, they're little and they want to show what's in their room. So just dealing with that, but it's cute because it gives them opportunity to share. So now before we start class every day, I say, who wants to share? Does anyone want to share anything today? And we take about 2 or 3 minutes and let them share, get it out of their system. And then I start teaching.
Yeah, and I think what you said before about some of the kids that didn't used to participate and now are, I think, you have the sort of like introverts that have become extroverts digitally, or my 4-year-old is more of an extrovert in person, but when they started doing Zoom calls, he was super quiet. And his teacher reached out and was like, hey, can I do a one-on-one with Max? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he did the same thing. He gave her a tour of the entire house and was like, this is what I painted, and da-da-da. So I think there's an interesting digital connection for some of these digital natives that maybe folks like us don't understand even. All right, so we're moving towards the end, and I want to save some time for questions at the end. But sort of summing up-ish a lot of what we've talked about, what's been your biggest lesson learned as part of remote learning? So let's just boil it down to one. If you have one thing that really you took out of this.
And me or Kelly?
Let's start with you, Keniesha. I apologize. I should have.
Okay. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is just to communication. I mean, I know communication is important as an educator, but just being in constant communication during this time, not even just like, this assignment's not done, but just checking in, like, is everything okay? How's your family?
Yep.
I was even during my dojo when we first started, I would just leave an inspirational quote every day for my parents and for my families, because it was like in the beginning, everybody was just going through a lot. So I think just even not just communicating assignments and expectations, but just check in and make sure that everyone's okay, and inspire them any way that you can, even if it's through a quote, because there'll be days where they're exhausted, they're depressed, they're sad, and and my kids don't even understand really what's going on, some of them. So just being in constant communication is something that I've learned that I have to do it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Kelly?
I'll second that one. It's just really been the communication piece, and the more you're able to communicate with parents and on a multitude of levels, not just that academic piece, but the socio-emotional piece too, letting your classroom know that you are a community, and part of being a community means expanding beyond just seeing these kids as sponges of information and regurgitators of that information. At the heart of it, they're still kids, and these are still families, and they choose our schools so that way we are part of a larger community. So being able to converse with each other, I've gotten on the phone and at this point had multitude of conversations, even with kids in my classroom who have graduated, who are 6th, 8th, 10th, 12th graders I've been on the phone with, because they just want to check in and they want to let me know, hey, I'm okay. That sort of thing I think has been really wonderful to kind of bring everyone back together again.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going again back to the silver lining. I mean, I've found out more about coworkers now than I did sitting 5 feet away from them. Just checking in and being like, "Hey, how are you?" And you hear life stories that you just don't get otherwise.
Yeah.
I saw a couple cool things in the chat. Just wanted to share. Communication, engagement, and joy. Love it. Educators have to be open to being educated, which I thought was kind of cool. This one's, I think, a really good one. SEL first, content second. I think that's a huge one. Can't forget about the SEL part of this. So this is similar question, but I'll ask it in a different way. If you could go back to mid-March when this all started, and you could kind of tell yourself, Kelly, or yourself, Keniesha, the newbie to remote learning, what would your one sort of piece of sage wisdom be outside of communication? Because we just covered that, I guess. Go ahead, Kelly.
Put everyone's username and password down on the same sheet of paper. Quickly realized very fast that just because you gave it to them and you know where it is doesn't mean anyone else does. So having that on just like a document that I could have easily been able to be like, all right, this is your page, click, and then sent it off. I know what I'm doing in September. Let's put it that way. I am making a one document. Here's all your passwords and usernames.
Sure. What about you, Keniesha?
I would just say relax. Normally, I like to be in control. I like to know that this is done, this is done, this is done. And if it's not done the way that I'm used to, then I get overwhelmed and I get freaked out. So I just think I would tell myself to relax, because there's going to be days, there are going to be days where everything goes right. And there'll be days where everything goes wrong that could possibly go wrong. Your internet goes out. The camera's not working. So I would just tell myself to relax. You're doing the best that you can. And I think the most important thing is that the students see you every day and hear you, and everything else will just come together.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think this is an emotional roller coaster for all of us, day to day, hour to hour. So yeah, I think the relax advice is a great piece of advice there. Putting on your prognosticator, I guess is the right word, hat. I don't know. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow, 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now. But we have an unknown back to school for really everybody. I think I did see Montana open back up today, but I think a lot of states are maybe planning for a remote back to school, or who knows. So with that, I know us at Amplify, we're trying to figure out how to service both of those worlds, or what those worlds are going to look like. So Keniesha, let's start with you. How are you planning for back to school, or have you not even gotten that far yet?
I'm trying not to think about it. It makes me really nervous, because these will be new students. At least the students I have now in front of me, I've known since September. These will be new students that don't know me, I don't know them. And as a teacher, we know the first couple of weeks are so crucial for routines and building a classroom community and a positive environment where children want to share and they feel comfortable. So I think right now I'm just thinking, how can I do that remotely? How can I have a community building activities? How can I make them feel like they're part of my classroom? And, and engage them, because they don't know me and I don't know them. At least I know my students now. I know the ones that I can say certain things to them and motivate them. So just learning my students. I'm thinking about how am I going to learn them remotely?
Sure. Yeah, those bonds are tough to build remotely. Absolutely. What about you, Kelly?
So there's a couple things that I'm planning on doing. Something that I like to do every year is, once the classes are kind of situated and you kind of have an idea about who you might get, because again, I'm a 4-5 combo and I am the gate teacher. So I know I'll get the gate kids. And I also loop. So I know that the 4th graders I'm going to have next year is 5th graders. So the issue is, what 3rd graders am I going to get? And my goal is always to reach out to parents early. I like to let kids and parents know in June, hey, FYI, you're in my room. And I can do that now because I know a lot of the third grade teachers use Classroom Dojo. So it's finding out what those students, if they have the Classroom Dojo, how can I get them onto mine? Any IEPs, I want to get those early. And then I'm also looking into starting recording sixth grade math videos for any of my fourth to fifth graders who might be ready for that next step in math. I want to do a lot more of that flipped classroom model, prep some read alouds over the summer, so that way I can maybe have more time during my day to host small group or do more videos, because there's only so much time in the day and you don't want those kids sitting in front of a TV, video, whatever all day long either.
Yep. I just saw somebody say, I don't want to even think about August. My admin will have a plan. My department runs well. We're working on teaching in similar tech schools. Remember, it'll work out. It will be okay. So I thought that was a good positive note. Question that maybe you don't have the answer to, and maybe this comes from your district. Are you guys thinking about covering content kids would have learned in person now at the beginning of next year? Or are you going to kind of just move ahead and forget about this past year? Kelly, let's start with you, I guess.
I don't think it's so much of like a moving on. I think that learning and taking what we've gained from this year as like a learning experience and growing from that, there's going to be things that work and things that don't work. And I think that it's one of those things where you don't want to just push it out the window and be like, oh, that was an experience, but instead moving towards August and September going, okay, this really worked. I really liked YouTube. I loved Flipgrid. That was amazing. What are some things that you can continue to use?
Yeah, I also think that too. And I think that, with teaching anyway, every year you're going to get a different class and there will be different holes. So I think starting with the curriculum and then filling in the holes as you go, because you don't know exactly, everyone is going to be at a different level. So I think one thing we're looking towards to do in our district, or in my school in particular, I won't speak for the district, is maybe having a summer enrichment kind of program, even if it's remotely, for the kids that we know who have not been on live lessons as much. So kind of filling in those holes even before we get started. But I think as an educator, you're always constantly filling in those holes anyway.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, so I want to leave a little bit of time for questions, but before I do that, I've seen a couple folks ask about this, and I know Zach from Amplify is in the chat and has given this, but I did just want to point out, we do have a free resource site that Amplify put together, that whether you're using Amplify or not, this is open to everybody. It's out there at freeresources.amplify.com. We have content for science, reading, ELA, some math content on there as well. There's a podcast we have up called The Science of Reading, which is a fantastic podcast that our ELA team does. So you can check that out. But on here, there's lots of free resources. Like I said, whether you use Amplify or not, there's things like videos, there's some read alouds, there's podcasts I mentioned, there's lots of skills practice activities, some novel guides from our ELA curriculum. So I would definitely recommend, if you're looking for free resources to use, freeresources.amplify.com, and you can go check those out. Right now, they're going to be up for at least through the end of June, maybe a little bit longer. But we wanted to just kind of pull some of the best of from our curriculum and put those out there. I know specifically for the science content, we've actually worked with some teachers from Denver Public Schools and Seattle Public Schools, where they've videoed themselves teaching some of the lessons from Amplify Science. So you can send those out to your kiddos as well. And I'll leave this up just so everybody can see it, but let me pull up some of the questions and see if we can hopefully answer some of these. Anybody have any great suggestions for fun middle school lessons or science lessons or activities? So those of you that are in the chat, I'll let you guys throw any answers you have in there. I know, so I know neither of you teach middle school. Definitely check out the Amplify site I just put up there, freeresources.amplify.com. Kelly, you're a little bit closer to middle school. Are there any cool activities you'd recommend?
Yeah, so I've been actually using something called Code Combat with my class, which is like a 3rd through high school coding platform. And the entire first unit, there's like 25 lessons, is completely free. It's super fun. And the platform people were awesome. I called them up and they gave my kids subscriptions until June 1st. And it's awesome for anyone whose kids were like, I don't want to do coding because it's just the block coding. This is pure either JavaScript or Python, and my kids are completely into it.
Very cool. I think we've said this acronym a couple times and I've been remiss to not explain it. So somebody asked, what is SEL? It's social and emotional learning. So it's been a bit of an acronym buzzword lately, but social and emotional learning. So this is one I was getting at a little bit before, but just to kind of put a nice bow on it. Keniesha, let's start with you. Do you feel like you've gotten things under control? Do you think that kids are on grade and ready for the next grade level?
I feel in regards to being in control on.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, that is. I mean, I'm in a good place where I'm having kids. Actually, I'm in contact with all my students and they are completing assignments and they are logging in on a regular basis. At grade level, there's only so many hours of the day for me to even teach. So I have to pick and choose exactly what I can teach remotely and what I can't. So I'm trying to cover everything, getting them ready for third grade, especially in math.
Sure.
But I'm not even sure if I will be able to cover it all. So I'm trying my best, but that's all I can really do right now.
That's all anybody can ask, I think.
Yeah.
Have one person say, can the Zoom chat be pulled out as a document? That would be super useful. Yeah. We'll pull this, we'll download the chat. You guys have put a lot of good stuff in there. We'll attach it to the email that goes out tomorrow. We probably should have answered this in the beginning. I know we said where you guys are from. So Keniesha, let's start with you. The question here is, what kind of districts are you two in? Demographics, urban, suburban, socioeconomic status, etc.
Well, I teach in Chicago Public Schools, so it is definitely an urban district, and it's probably the second or the third largest district in the country. I think New York is bigger. We might be second or third. So we actually are a huge district. So our demographics range, but it just depends. I mean, because it's such an urban community, every school is different.
Sure. And Kelly?
So I teach in San Diego Unified, which is in San Diego, California. We are the second largest district in all of California. We go as far north as Del Mar, as far east as Jamul, and all the way down south, the National City, all the way to the West Coast and the Pacific. So, I mean, we are a very, very expansive district. We have, over 60 plus different languages spoken in our district across the board. And it's just, we're huge. We're a very, very, very big district. We have Title I schools across the board. I know my school personally has about 95% Title I, if not more. We are one of the highest populations of special education students in all of San Diego in terms of elementary school. Our numbers rival that of the high schools. And we also have just a lot of refugees, English language learners, you name it, we've got it. And it's made learning just really, really fun to have that high diverse population, whether that's linguistically, ethnically, socio-emotional, socio-economic. So yeah, very big district.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys are two of the bigger districts for sure. Desmos and Twitch, what are they? So Desmos is a math provider, and I believe it's just desmos.com, so you can check them out, and they do a lot of great work. And then Twitch is I think a platform. Kelly, you can speak better to that.
That one. So my husband and I were playing around with platforms because I didn't know whether or not Zoom would be able to be equipped to handle everyone going on distance learning all at once. So I played around with Twitch. It is a video game streaming service. So anyone who's real into, League of Legends or Rocket League, people can go on and stream their stuff and go for hours on end and records it afterwards. But I learned really quickly that it wasn't my jam because anyone could join. And I was like, I don't like that for kids. So we lasted on Twitch for a day before we moved to YouTube live stream, and we've been living there ever since.
Very cool. Another one is Amplify Schoology friendly. Yes, we are compatible with Schoology. Kelly, this is, or maybe both of you, I think Kelly, you're using this though. Can Dojo work for 165 middle schoolers?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yes.
Yes,
So my
yes
class
is always a good answer.
I'm a mentor, so I'm able to send out messages to the entire school. And
Yeah.
as right now, the Limburg-Schweitzer community has over 495 people on it.
Wow.
Yeah, our whole school has Dojo. We have a school page, so it has all
Cool.
of our parents on there, so it can hold a lot of people.
Very cool. Okay, so that's a yes. This is a good question. I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you guys do. How do you know if assessments are valid? There's no way to verify who's doing the work and if the directions are fair, understandable for IEPs or ELs. Kelly, why don't we start with you there?
Oh, you do not know who is taking the test on the other end. You have to literally just be trusting that the kid is doing their work for themselves, and it's not a parent sitting down doing their work for them and making them sound amazing.
Yeah.
And have you had any issues with the directions being understandable for ELs potentially?
I have. So there's been a couple of things where I have a parent who understands English but speaks and understands more readily in Spanish. So thankfully, Classroom Dojo allows translation. So they translate up to, I believe, 30 languages, Arabic included, which has been a godsend for me. So just being able to utilize Google Translator. I also have, I want to say a month before we went out, I had a student join us from Brazil, speaks Brazilian Portuguese, and had no English. And so I've been doing a lot with him through Duolingo as well.
Interesting. Does your district tell you how much time to spend on each subject area you teach? How much time for ELA, math, science, etc.?
We don't have a time limit. We just have that they kind of broke it down by grade levels. So like K2, I think no more than 90 minutes a day on live lessons. And then as the kids get older, they increase the time, but we didn't really get directions on like 30 minutes for math, 30 minutes for reading. It's kind of at the teacher's discretion. I know some teachers in the teachers in my school, a lot are departmentalized, so all they teach is science or social studies or math. So it looks different, I think, in every school.
Kelly, same for you?
On my end, there wasn't really like a hard limit on what we could or could not do. We had to do X, Y, Z. It's mostly just kind of that honesty policy of making sure that you are trying to teach math, you are trying to teach science, you're trying to teach those core languages based on the standards, while also trying to keep rigor high, which has been, you know, a challenge for everybody to try and diversify, but also keep rigor really high. The only limitation that we have is they did put a limitation for teachers. We're only allowed to be on video for like 2 hours a day. So that way, I think it just kind of keeps us from, you know, having that all day office hour and sitting on Zoom for 8 hours trying to answer questions for parents.
Sure, absolutely. All right, my friends, you're off the hot seat. It's 5 o'clock, at least where I am. So I know the one thing probably keeping you guys from the rest of your day. So I'd like to thank Kelly Young and Keniesha Charleston for joining us today. I'd like to thank all of you all for joining us today. I know you've got busy lives and we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Like I said at the beginning of the call, you're going to be getting an email from Zoom tomorrow afternoon-ish. It usually comes about 24 hours after the webinar. Again, it's going to come from Zoom, not Amplify. It's going to give you the link to the recording. I will add the chat as per request because I think that could be very useful. And we're also going to give you a link to request a certificate that you can personalize to your name for attending this call. So again, thank you to both of you for joining. Those of you out there looking for some free resources you might be able to use, you can check out the link that's on the screen, freeresources.amplify.com. Again, you can use those whether you're using Amplify or not currently, and we hope you try them out. And again, thank you for all you do. We appreciate it. Like I said in the beginning, I've always had a healthy respect for educators, and that's grown a million times since remote learning started. So happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all of you. We at Amplify appreciate you. I know the parents around my town appreciate you. So we hope to see you all soon, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys.
Bye.